Welcome to Affordable Medicines Now. Can you hear me if I stand this far back? I'm hoping that we don't have to be on the mic. Beautiful. Great. So welcome. I'm glad you could all join us this morning. And as we continue to have some guests come and join us, we'll welcome them in as well. So I'm here, Justin Mendoza, the organizer of... Thank you. Thank you. So I'm the organizer for the Access to Medicines program at Public Citizen. We'll hear from different folks from my team throughout the weekend, as well as many of your teams. But we are, of course, a public interest nonprofit that's been around since 1971. And within our fight for public interest around the health, safety, and democracy of Americans, as well as people living abroad, we have been working on access to medicine since 2010. And so we're excited to come together here with all of you and talk about this issue and work on this issue and build towards a real strategy to win. To be frank, as a movement, we've seen some of the hardest fought battles in HIV/AIDS, in diabetes, around insulin access, and around access to many other life-saving and important medications, and ongoing fights around cancer, ongoing fights around palliative care. And as we continue to push for real change, we face some of the steepest opposition we can imagine. So this weekend, we're hoping to unpack that, or I keep calling it a weekend. This week, which ends on Friday, we're going to be unpacking some of that opposition, looking at how we can work together as coalitions and allies, and truly starting to build on the power we already have and shoot for more power to take on the pharmaceutical industry right where they call themselves at home. This morning, before we get started with our programming, we're going to have a couple of folks coming up. First, we'll have Matt Kavanagh, who's the Director of Global Health Policy Initiatives here at the O'Neill Institute. Excellent. The O'Neill Institute for National and Global Health Law, and I'll have Matt come up in just one second. And we also will have Elizabeth Rowley, who's the Executive Director of T1 International, one of the organizations that's been, thank you. Excellent. T1 International is one of the organizations that's been leading the fight on access to insulin, pushing really for the Insulin for All movement and bringing in voices of people living with type 1 from all over the world. And she's going to be reading for us some statement that's been pre-written by someone who's been very much connected to the movement through a story that I'm not going to give away before you hear the letter. And then after that, we'll be kind of starting our day off with a visioning exercise, which will be explained in full. But our hope is that we get a chance to really look at what future we want in the space of drugs pricing and plan from there. As our agenda lays out, we'll hear from elected officials over the next 3 days, and they'll be introduced as we go. And we'll also have lots of discussions and breakouts really leading into the end of this week. So the other logistical things, the Wi-Fi is up here. I think we just wrote it larger on the whiteboard, so if you need it there in the back, it's pretty hard to read the smaller sign. We're using a hashtag #AffordableMedsNow. I know it's long, but it's great. You can use 280 characters now, so. So we'll be using that hashtag. We'll be talking about this on social media by going out through Facebook. We have Social Security Works Facebook living the event for us. It's also being broadcast on Public Citizen's Facebook page and on the Facebook page for the Alliance for Retired Americans. I think that's the one. Yes. And so please be on the lookout for that. Share the link with your friends and anyone who can't be in the room today. Great. And then the other piece is tomorrow we won't be in this room. We'll be actually in the Gewer Center, which is right across that quad out that window. And it's going to be at the top floor of that building. A couple things there. You'll need a photo ID for security. It doesn't have to be an official license, but just some kind of photo identification. I'm sure we can work around that. Just let one of our registration desk folks know if you don't have a photo ID, so we can have you on a list. But you'll need that to get into the building through security, and then we'll be set up in a different kind of room set up there. Awesome. I think that's everything we've got. But without further ado, Matt Kavanagh.
Hi, everyone. So welcome to Georgetown University and the Law Center. We are thrilled to get to welcome you all here and to have folks from across the country, folks from a number of different movements, folks from academia, folks from frontline communities, folks from all over here to talk about this kind of critical issue. So the O'Neill Institute for National Global Health Law is based here at Georgetown University, and the mission is to use law to address people's health. It's a pretty simple idea, right? We're also, as we said, based here at Georgetown University, and I have only been here at Georgetown for just under a year, right? And so one of the funny things that I did is I was thinking about how to welcome everybody here was to actually read the Georgetown mission statement. And it's actually pretty interesting, right? So one of the lines in it, right, this is a Jesuit institution, and one of the lines is, to educate reflective, lifelong learners to be responsible and active participants in civic life and live generously in the service of others. So as we open this conference and really welcome people here, I think it is deeply in the Georgetown spirit to actually open the doors and say, can people here figure out how to live that life that they're imagining, right? Can it be reflective, right? And so it's on us, I think, to notice that Americans are paying more for drugs than anyone in the world, right? It's on us to notice and reflect that cancer drugs can cost $10,000 per month when the average income is $5,000 per month. We have to notice that. That's our job, right? We have to notice that people are literally dying because of the price of drugs. We need to notice that also it doesn't happen anywhere, it doesn't not happen everywhere in the world. We also need to take responsibility, and the fact that this is in the Georgetown mission statement is a key part of why we're here hosting this conference, right? Taking responsibility to actually do something about it, right? To take responsibility also to speak truth when proposals are put out that say that they will bring down the price of drugs when we know that they won't, when we know that they will serve the profits of industry only, right? And so we are here happy that we can actually do that. The O'Neill Institute, as I said, is about using and focusing on the power of law, right? And one of the things that we know is that law is created by people and that laws can change. And we have noticed that the laws currently in existence are propping up the system that I just described. And therefore, part of what we are very excited to welcome folks here to do is to think about how those laws might change. Think about what it would take to actually change those laws. To think through proposals on the policy level, but also think through the politics of how do we shift it so that we actually can achieve the outcomes that we need, so that we can serve people's health rather than just serving profit. The O'Neill Institute is also global in its scope, right? It's the Institute for Global and National Health Law. And one of the things that being a global institute lets us do is to actually, one, include the United States in the globe, right? Somebody recently was describing this to me in toddler terms, right? As often folks in global health count the people in the room like a toddler, right? There are 5 people in the room, but they keep counting and they keep getting to 4, right? And somehow the United States is not part of the globe. But we are, right? And in fact, we can observe that the bizarre phenomenon that is happening in the United States government, right, and in the United States policy space, and then in the United States access to medicines, is somewhat unique. But we can also see the global ways in which the policies here are connected to policies elsewhere. The way in which the price of drugs here in the United States is linked to the price of drugs around the world. The way in which we can learn from people who have fought very long fights and seen very smart policy proposals that have in fact changed the price of drugs. So a famous quote out there is from Indira Gandhi, the former prime minister of India, right? And she said, "My idea of a better ordered world is one in which medical discoveries are free of patents and that there is no profiteering on life and death." This was quite a while ago. Indira Gandhi's been gone for a while, right? But what's amazing about that is that she didn't just say that. Right? We live in a world right now where often people say something while doing exactly the opposite. And what's really fascinating, what's worth noting, is the degree to which Indira Gandhi then set out to do something about it, right? Changed laws, set up companies, changed funding sources in India that have resulted in massive reductions in the price of medicines for people around the world. And so the fact that they did it, the fact that she did it, should give us inspiration that in fact laws can change and leadership can do something different than the way in which we necessarily find ourselves today. So I'm not only here based at the academic institution of Georgetown, but at my heart I'm an AIDS activist, right? And I remember front and center 1999 when the price of HIV treatment was $10,000 per patient per year. And folks just down the road right here, right, were saying we can't possibly get drugs to Africa because they're far too expensive. They have to be $10,000, right? There's no way to actually address this problem, right? And we could still be in that world, because if you actually look around the world, most drugs are still priced very high in countries around the world, including countries where it's just impossible that actually people could pay those prices, and therefore those drugs are simply unavailable in large swaths of the world. But in 1999, a coalition of lawyers and people living with HIV and doctors and activists together put forward a coalition effort that brought together people's movements, together with smart lawyering, together with policy proposals, together with impassioned speeches, together with all of those things. And actually, today, right, literally just recently, the drug price that had been $10,000, the cutting edge treatment for HIV, dolutegravir, is going to be available for $72 per patient per year in most of the world. And this is one of the most complex drugs in the world, right? It's really an interesting drug. It's an antiretroviral. It is not Tylenol, right? And yet it's $72 per patient per year. And so let's take that inspiration. Let's think about the policy infrastructure that would enable people to actually access those drugs. We can solve this problem, and we are really glad to welcome you here because we have to solve this problem. Thank you guys very much for being here.
Excellent. And now, Elizabeth, come and join us up here. Thank you, Matt, for those opening remarks.
Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. So yes, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm reading this statement on behalf of Nicole Smith-Holt. She's an amazing advocate fighting for affordable insulin for all. Back in April, I was contacted by Public Citizen, and they asked me if I was up for attending a conference in June on access to medicines. I responded with an I would love to, as long as it fits into my schedule and as long as I can fit it into my budget. A few weeks later, they sent me a link to learn more about the conference and to view the schedule. My heart sank when I saw the dates. You see, today, June 27th, is the one-year anniversary of Alec passing away. Some of you who are attending this conference may not know me, and you may not know my son, Alec Rayshon Smith. Let me give you a brief rundown on who Alec was. Alec was just turning 24 in May of 2015 when he was first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. To say we were all shocked would be an understatement. I was scared. I was so scared for him. He seemed to handle his diagnosis well. Sure, he went through a period of time asking, why me? But he bounced back rapidly and took his diagnosis seriously. He met with his diabetes specialist and dietitian. He made lifestyle changes, he made dietary changes, and he made mental changes. He did very well as a new diabetic. I was really proud of him for facing these challenges head on and with dedication. He needed to take his illness seriously because he had a little girl, a daughter who needed her dad to be healthy. Fast forward to 2017, Alec turned 26 on May 20th, and this meant he could no longer be on my health insurance policy. On June 1st, 2017, he officially was uninsured. I was terrified. We searched online several months prior to this for insurance through the ACA and found out he made too much money for the subsidy for medical assistance. We were forced to look at insurance through the marketplace. I can't believe the prices of a policy on this site. We found only high premium and high deductible plans. Alec considered a plan that would be $450 a month with a $7,600 deductible. After playing with numbers and his budget, we realized that the plan would not be affordable. At the time, we believed his out-of-pocket monthly cost for insulin and supplies would be about $1,000, which would mean he would have paid for his premium of $450 a month, plus the out-of-pocket expense for at least 7 months before insurance would kick in. After seeing these numbers, Alec made the decision he would skip insurance and just pay at the counter until he could find a different job that offered different insurance. Alec survived just 27 days after being dropped from my health care plan. Alec went to the pharmacy in June, we believe it was around the 20th, to fill his prescription for insulin and pick up his supplies. When he got to the pharmacy, he was told his total was $1,300. He was planning for it to be $1,000, and he didn't have $1,300, so he left without his insulin. He was found dead alone on his bedroom floor on June 27th at 5:20 p.m. My son died from diabetic ketoacidosis because he could not afford the price of his life-sustaining insulin. We believe that Alec was trying to stretch the last of his supply of insulin until payday, which was June 30th. He was found with completely empty pens littered all over his apartment. Unfortunately, the medical examiner took both of his insulin kits and the body, so we couldn't verify if there was any insulin left in his remaining pen. Prior to Alec's death, we had no idea there was a diabetes online community. I wish I had known about this community, the resources, the advocacy, and the support that is available. If we had only known, maybe he would still be alive. There are so many what-ifs, things we could have done differently if we had only known, if only the price of insulin was affordable. It breaks my heart to hear the daily struggles to afford insulin. We need to keep fighting this huge battle to prevent deaths like Alec's. Insulin is considered an essential medication and should be treated like it is. No diabetic should be going into debt to afford insulin. No diabetic should die because of the cost of insulin. Diabetes is stressful enough with just trying to manage the disease 24/7. Stressing about the affordability should not be an issue. Rationing insulin and supplies should never happen. I wish you all had the chance to meet Alec. He was the most loving, caring, goofy, compassionate, adventurous, generous, and persistent young man. He had a love of life and adventure. He was not the type to just sit around and chill unless it was when he was camping or hanging out at a bonfire. He loved the outdoors and would often be found camping or hiking, fishing, boating, or throwing an impromptu barbecue when he had a day off from his busy work schedule. He loved music, so he was always looking for a concert or performance to attend. He had a great love of sports. He played baseball, basketball, and football all through high school and was a regular at Minnesota Vikings football games, Twins baseball games, and the Minnesota Wild hockey games. Alec loved to travel. He enjoyed seeing new places and experiencing different cultures. He fell in love with the Caribbean islands and had a mission to visit each of the 25 islands. Unfortunately, he only made it to 7. Most of Alec's friends referred to Alec as Big Al. He had a massive growth spurt in high school, and by his sophomore year, he was 6'4". He was a big old teddy bear. Alec always had a smile on his face. It was a goofy grin of a smile. He was always handing out hugs. His hugs are one of the things I miss the most. Alec is missed by so many, his family, his huge circle of friends, and his daughter Savannah, who is now 5 years old. My youngest son Jameson is 14, and he looked up to his big brother. Alec was his idol. Alec was his everything. My life forever changed on June 27, 2017. I wish I could be there with you all for the conference, but I feel like I really need to be with my family and close friends during this difficult day. I admire you all so much for taking on this battle, for dedicating so much time and energy to the cause. I look up to so many of you. I take so much knowledge from you and use it to fuel my fight. I hope that this conference gives you more tools and resources to prepare for the battle and ultimately to win this fight. We need to stand up and fight the greed and the profiteering of Big Pharma. I vow to continue sharing Alec's story and to continue to fight to ensure we achieve our goal of access to affordable insulin for everyone with diabetes. Insulin for all. Thank you. From Nicole.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for reading that for us all today. And a big thank you to Nicole, if you're watching at home or when you see this later, for being able to share your story with us and help us remember just, one of the many heartbreaking stories around these issues that is, really the reason that we're in this room and the reason that we're here to really fight on these things. So our next piece of this agenda, where we're moving to next, is to start to think about what does the world look like when we're winning on this? And to guide us through this discussion, to bring us through, really doing something that we don't always do in our movements, which is looking forward, are 3 wonderful facilitators from Health Gap, the Health Global Access Project, Emily Sanderson. From the Treatment Action Group, we have Suraj Maduri and Bryn Gay, and the 3 of them will guide us through a new exercise. I have to give them some more materials, and I'll let them come up and do a little bit of a longer introduction and intro to their exercise as well. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started.